What's up guys, Bayliun from MMA On Point here today with a very special collab. I'm going to give you guys a lesson on Dagestan and how they took over the MMA game. Whether it's wrestling, sambo, jiu-jitsu or MMA, fighters from Dagestan have risen to dominate the global stage with a relentless grinding style and an unshakable mindset.
Figure to be a tough proposition.
One name put the country on the map, Khabib Nurmagomedov. And his undefeated reign in the UFC gave way to a growing wave of prospects across the mountains of Dagestan. It's a region of the world that is now synonymous with elite level combat. And in this video today, I'm going to break down step by step the tactics he used to dominate. But first of all, you might be asking, how did a small republic in the North Caucasus become the world's most feared fighting factory? Dagestan is a republic within the Russian Federation. With over 30 ethnic groups and more than a dozen languages, Dagestan is one of the most culturally diverse and complex regions in Russia. Its history has been marked by constant conflict, and wrestling has been a part of that Dagestani culture for centuries. But it was during the Soviet era that it became systemized through state-backed sport. And that aligned perfectly with a culture built on toughness and competition. Eventually, Sambo, an art developed for the military forces, took root in Dagestan and became a key part of training, laying the groundwork for the dominant, all-rounded fighters we see today. And in this harsh environment, fighting isn't just a sport, it's a tradition, duty, and identity. It might have been Khabib Nurmagomedov who put Dagestan on the global MMA map, but he wasn't the first Dagestani fighter to run through the competition like a wrecking machine.
Alhamdulillah, tomorrow night I'm gonna smash your boy, guys. I'm gonna smash your boy.
Back in the early 2000s, before the UFC ever signed a Dagestani, there was a man feared across the MMA world, Karimula Barkalaev. This guy was an ADCC champion, a world sambo champion, and an undefeated mixed martial artist. Barkalaev was a relentless force. Trained in both judo and sambo in the Caucasus Mountains, he represented the early blueprint of the Dagestani grappler. And against the guys of his era, it was all too easy for him. His trips and throws came with drilled precision. His dominance and top control was also second to none, not unlike the Dagestanis who would follow, and his balance and pressure was incredible. And he was also super athletic. The ground and pound was devastating and just relentless. Barkalaev would go on an 11-0 undefeated run, with many people, including the UFC champion Pat Miletich, calling him the best fighter pound for pound. And we might have seen a Dagestani UFC champion in the early 2000s. But he lost to Dave Monet in a one-night tournament, and that guy would go on to be the first ever UFC middleweight champion, and Barkalaev retired and never fought again. And it would be years before the world met another fighter from those mountains.
Khabib, the Eagle Nurmagomedov!
Before he became a UFC legend, Khabib was a boy wrestling on snowy ground in Dagestan. Trained by his father, Abdulmanap, a master of sambo and student of the legendary Volkan. Abdulmanap blended judo, wrestling and sambo into a system built on control, endurance and discipline, turning Khabib into his prototype. By his teens, Khabib was already dominating grown men in national sambo tournaments. When he entered the UFC, Khabib was still raw with limited striking, but evolving tactics, and even then, no one could stop him. Early on, in this case, tries to counter-throw Khabib, but does not have his feet planted, and so Khabib ends up on. Fast forward a few fights later in his career, and he's taking on the future lightweight champion, Rafael dos Anjos. Already in a few fights, we can see the development of strategy with Khabib and as the pressure comes from RDA, Khabib now blitzes with his striking, giving himself space so he can retake the center. And this starts to become a pattern in the early rounds of this fight. The very next time he loads a strike, the hands of RDA come up away from his hips to guard his head. And less than a minute in, he already has RDA reacting exactly how he wants him to. The level changes, fakes, and then constant pressure push RDA to the cage until Khabib feels he has the right distance to step in, throw, and immediately hit the level change. Here though, Khabib shows off his sheer physical strength. Even though RDA digs his underhook, Khabib connects his hands, leans all his weight into RDA, takes a penetrating step and lifts RDA straight up and off the canvas using his knee as a leverage point. Eventually then using his right knee behind the legs of RDA to break his posture and complete the takedown. And even though they might have been crazy, these entries into his strikes constantly kept his opponents guessing. Here, a lead hook brings up the hands of RDA once more before Khabib again immediately level changes to the hips. And again, even with an underhook from RDA, Khabib locks his hands, takes his step in between the legs, and when that happens, he almost always completes. In this fight with RDA, he continuously ragdolled the future UFC champion, who'd go on to kind of adopt Khabib's style himself and then go on a legendary win streak of his own. But an injury would force Khabib to the sidelines for 2 years.
2014, when I just beat Rafael Dos Anjos, I tore my ACL. This is like crazy injuries. I tore my ACL. After that, I tried to come back. Almost 1 year, I recover. Again, ACL, 1 more year.
In his return to the UFC though, he would only be more dominant and more ruthless and get more and more traction. Early on, against Darrell Horcher, Khabib's lead hand play and fakes do not get much of a reaction. Darrell is determined to hold the center of the octagon and does not give up space. But Khabib knows that as long as he keeps threatening the shot, Horcher will have to retreat, and this continuous pressure is just too much for Darrell. He keeps getting pushed back until there's little cage real estate behind him, and Khabib level changes as many times as he needs. A fake here from Khabib has Darrell transfer his weight onto his back leg, and Khabib uses this as his moment to shoot. As Horcher has planted, he can't easily exit the space he needs. He tries to pull his lead leg away, but it has no space to travel because his back foot is planted. He instead has to start moving his back foot to create space, but it's too late and Khabib is already on his lead leg. But again, as you can see, Khabib is on his knees, but this form of momentum carries him as he right steps his leg all the way through and then brings his back left leg up to take a big step off his foot and drive Darrell into the cage. He's now close enough and deep enough on the shot that he can complete his takedown against the cage. And here he doesn't just sock out the base, he completely lifts and turns him away from the cage, carrying him back to the center of the canvas. So not only does Khabib use the cage to help complete his own takedowns, but he will then take it away from his opponents to stop them from being able to get up. It's genius.
To the body and head. You know, this could easily be stopped, and it wouldn't be a bad stoppage. It is right there. It is all over.
His next performance, though, would also put a stamp in everyone's minds on how dominant and ruthless Dagestani wrestling is. Michael Johnson was an athletic guy and used to a lot of wrestlers level changing on him. He even has a background in freestyle wrestling himself. When Khabib didn't set up his shots, Johnson's sprawl was explosive. This time though, Khabib leads with his jab as Johnson slips and plants his feet. Khabib reaches forward and grabs a collar tie. Now Khabib has made connection to the body of Johnson and level changes. But again, Johnson's able to sprawl and even pull his leg away, knowing that's the leg Khabib was looking to attack with the low single. Johnson tries to snap Khabib down, but he stands, collecting the right underhook at the same time, and then he drives forward, reaching to reap the same right leg of Michael that he pulled away before, and Johnson's able to use his overhook and frame on Khabib's head to break this posture and stop the shot. Khabib, though, once again is on his knees. It's somewhere we see him a lot and not somewhere that people can usually finish takedowns from. But this is also how strong this guy is. Still on his knees, he uses his underhook to push Michael to the cage. And of course, once he got on top of Johnson, he absolutely started to destroy him. As Johnson starts to turn his back to avoid the shots, we saw another weapon in the arsenal of the Dagestani fighters. Khabib takes his right hand and collects the far side arm of Michael, pinning it behind him. Khabib then takes his head to push down and break the posture of Michael and put him flat on his back with his arm still trapped, and this position became known as the Dagestani handcuff. He then takes his left leg and waist and sits high on the hips and the right leg of Michael Johnson, completely locking him down. And Khabib still has a hand free to land shots at will right in front of Dana White. It was a performance that broke through to casual audiences tuning into the pay-per-view. They'd seen his relentless takedowns, the Dagestani handcuff, and the way he could lock up the lower body with his legs.
Move, Mike.
As his striking started to once again develop, it gave him more options for these takedowns and grappling as well, which he needed in his title-winning performance against Al Iaquinta. Iaquinta, despite the short notice, was very wise to the low single attack of Khabib. So Khabib started to incorporate his jab instead to set these shots up, throwing it out to bring up the hands of Al away from his body and then level changing, reaching the lead leg. Al this time though, who is very wise, again gets to limp leg out and escape. Here, with Khabib on his knees, unable to drive forward, and Al almost pulled out completely, it looks bad. But Khabib still has his ankle and cradles it under his right armpit. He keeps a hold of it as he stands back to his feet and instead starts to treetop Al. And Al cannot balance and is run backwards into a takedown from what looked like a very bad position. And as this fight went on, we saw the jab of Khabib become more and more of a weapon as well. It kept Al busy and it helped disguise those takedowns. Khabib throws one jab out and Al parries it, and then he immediately throws a second, which is just a fake for the level change. Al though, without the cage in the way, is able to limp leg out from the takedown. But Khabib immediately throws a jab out, gets the same reaction from Al and shoots at his legs again. This time when he collects the leg, he runs out to the cage and there is nowhere for him to limp leg out to. And once again, we see Khabib hit the same takedown he hits on everybody regardless if they know it's coming. This cycle is again repeated in this fight. And on that night, he was crowned the UFC lightweight champion. Still undefeated with a wrestling game everyone knew was coming, but no one could stop.
And new undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world.
Now against Conor McGregor, in a serious grudge match, the Irishman was going to come forward with non-stop pressure to hold the centre and stop Khabib from pushing him back. But early on, as soon as McGregor throws out the head kick, Khabib uses this moment to immediately circle back to the centre. And once there, he wastes no time and shoots straight away. Initially, I think a lot of people were surprised that Conor managed to sprawl out well on top of Khabib and take backside control position. But from here, as soon as Conor lets go of the chest wrap, Khabib from his knees is able to rise up still attached to the leg of McGregor. And then on the spot, he will run the pipe and rotate as many times as he needs to before dragging him back, using the momentum to take the base away. And again, once Khabib was on top in this fight, we saw some great ground and pound tactics.
How many shots can one man take?
It's very unique for someone to be able to control and float above his opponent from stacked position and still land damage without fully committing to the top position. And Nurmagomedov was able to do tons of damage from here, and also limit McGregor's attempts to get up. As the fight wore on, we again saw the same takedowns were coming out from Khabib, with McGregor, like all of his opponents, just unable to stop them. Khabib defended his title with another dominant performance.
There it is. Nope, it's on the chin.
There's the tap! Still undisputed! Khabib Nurmagomedov!
And yes, of course, he knocked Conor McGregor down with his striking in that fight, also showing the evolution of that game, but also the constant threat of the takedowns, making a world-class striker like McGregor make mistakes. Khabib Nurmagomedov soared through his MMA career as an undefeated Dagestani champion. After he retired at 29-0 undefeated, his legacy of dominance would continue as his dad Abdulmanap predicted with father's plan. And Islam Makhachev would do the same, using the same style to smash his way to a UFC championship. And so many other fighters have followed since then. Even with some legends before him, Khabib was the guy to put the country on the map. And all those fighters who have followed in his footsteps have added to the legacy and the evolving style of the Dagestani wrestlers. Each one of them has their own variation in tactics and styles themselves. But ultimately, as a whole, from the region of Dagestan, they have produced some of the most dominant fighters in MMA history. Their dedication to discipline and a strict training regime starting from a very early age has turned them into absolute grappling monsters. And if you don't have the technical prowess to lock up with them, then you will definitely not have the physical strength and capabilities to stop what they're trying to do. The legacy of the Dagestani fighters continues to be told, and I would love to break down everything that has followed, but that will have to be a video for another time.